Do I have your attention? 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 Do I have your attention?
Is you taking notes?
Okay, you guys, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and about 5 to 6 slices of thick cut bacon. Now, if you would like, you could also use a pancetta. A pancetta would work beautifully in this dish, but sometimes pancetta can be a little bit on the pricier side. And also, for some reason, not all grocery stores carry it, which I think is a bit odd. But most grocery stores will always have bacon. Now, I definitely will say that you want to use a higher quality bacon and definitely a thick cut bacon because the bacon itself is not going to be in the dish. What we're going for is just getting as much of that reserved bacon fat as possible. So the thicker cut of the bacon and the better quality, the more bacon fat you're going to get. And that's just going to add a lot of flavor to the overall dish. This is not this is not like your typical spaghetti sauce, you guys. You won't be adding the seasonal salts and onion powders and all that type of stuff. This is meant to be a luscious, deep, red, meaty, hearty sauce. It's a meat ragu. So, you want to add in as many layers of flavor in the beginning stages as possible. So now that we've gotten our bacon out, what we're going to do is we're going to add in our mirepoix, or I also call it the Holy Trinity, which is our carrots, our celery, and our onions. So that's about 4 large carrots, 1 sweet onion, and then about 5 stalks of celery. And then what I did was I just minced those down, and you're going to use a nice hefty handful of kosher salt as well as black pepper. You guys, that's all the seasonings that are going to go into this dish. Like I said, this is meant to be a meat sauce where you're enjoying the taste of the veggies. You're enjoying the taste of the meat and of those fresh tomatoes and all the other ingredients that are going to go into it a little bit later in this video. We're not going to mask it with a bunch of seasonings. So just keep that in mind. So now that our vegetables have kind of sweat down, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in our meat. So what I have is a 1/2 pound of mild Italian sausage, a 1/2 pound of spicy Italian sausage, and then I used about 1.5 pounds of ground chuck. Now, if you would like, you could also add in some veal. I personally don't eat that, so I, don't really add it to mine. Some people also add lamb, but I'm just not really into all of that, so I just stick with the ground pork and the ground beef. So what we're doing right now is we're just breaking down the meat, and the good thing about having those little bite-sized pieces of those veggies in there, that'll also help you with the process of breaking down the meat. Now, once again, this is not meant to be like meatballs or like, the regular spaghetti where sometimes you kind of want to see those big chunks of meat. Not with this. You want this to be completely broken down into as small of bite-sized pieces as possible. Because one of the best things about a good Bolognese sauce, when it's cooked properly and if the meat's broken down, it just completely melts in your mouth. It's absolutely delicious. So now that our meat is kind of broken down, what I like to do is, just to be even more on the safe side, I take my pastry cutter and I go in and I gently break it down even more. Now, the reason why I say do it gently is because, you don't want to ruin the bottom of your pan, especially if you're using your Dutch oven. You don't want to scratch it up. But using this is a great way to really break down that meat even more. Or if you want, you can go in, with a fork or something like that, just to try to break it down as much as possible. Also, you want to have your temperature on about a medium high because you want as much of that water to evaporate out of that ground beef and the pork as possible. Once you start to hear your pan sizzling again, that means that the majority of the water is now gone, and now that what's left is just the fat from the meat, and that's what you want. You're not going to be draining any of it out. You're going to leave it all in because that's all going to be additional flavor to the overall ragu sauce. And as you can see right now, most of the water has kind of evaporated out of the dish. So what we'll do is we'll get ready to move on to the next stage, which is you're going to add in a 1/2 cup of half and half. If you don't have half and half, by all means, you can use whole milk. That is completely fine. And then you're going to use a 1/2 cup of chicken stock. Now, I like to use the Better Than Bouillon because to me, that's just a deeper and richer chicken stock. But by all means, you can use whatever type of chicken stock you would like. Now, the next thing we're going to be adding in is our red wine. Now, for the red wine, you want to stay clear of any type of sweet wine. You want to use a dry wine or like a red blend. That's also okay, but definitely not a sweet wine at all. But as you guys can see, all of the water has evaporated, and now what's left, it's just that chicken stock, the meat, and then the fat from the ground beef and the pork. So we've just added in a half a cup of our red wine. Now, if you want, you can make it a deeper ragu sauce by adding in 1 full cup. For me, I think a half a cup is more than enough. So right now we have our temperature up on a pretty high temperature, because now I just want to make sure that, if there is any reserved water, that the majority of that's gone. So now we're just left with just the fat from the meat, which is exactly what we want. This Bolognese sauce, you guys, takes almost about 3 hours or so to cook. You can also prepare it in the oven if you would like, but I like to do mine on the stovetop just so that I can keep an eye on it, because as you can see, the meat has broken down beautifully. And when we get ready to add in the tomato sauce, you don't want it to burn to the bottom of your pan, especially if you don't have the best pan. So I like to do mine on the stovetop. That way I can keep an eye on it. So what I add is I have 2 cans of just crushed tomatoes, and then I add in 1 can of San Marzano's plum tomatoes. Now, if you want, you can use all crushed tomatoes or you can use all plum tomatoes. That's completely up to you. What I would highly, highly, highly advise you not to do is do not add any of those like pre-made pasta sauces, i.e. Prego, Ragus, don't add any of that. You just want straight tomatoes. And those are also a product of Italy. So, it's also a really grade A quality of tomato. You kind of want to try to put the best of the best in this type of sauce, because it does take a while to make, but I promise you, it's such a great multi-purpose sauce that if you use the best ingredients to go into it, it truly will last you quite some time, because this sauce does hold up beautifully after you've frozen it. I use this for the holiday time when I just want to have it just over some tagliatelle noodles, or like if I want to make ravioli, or what I do around Christmas time, if I want to make a lasagna, this is the sauce that I always use for my lasagna, because it does make quite a bit. So you're going to add in 2 bay leaves, just plop that down, put the top on it, and let it go on about a medium high for 2 hours. And at that point, it is going to turn into a luscious, you can see how incredibly thick and rich that sauce has gotten. And it's reduced to maybe a little above half, but as you can see, it's just thickened up beautifully. And right before I took the top off, so maybe in the last half hour, I added in a stick of butter just to add another layer of richness to it. Now, at this point, this is when you should go ahead and taste it and see if you would like to add any more salt. What I also did off camera was I added about a half a cup of Parmigiano Reggiano to it as well, and some fresh basil. I did that off camera, so that was a half a cup of the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese and some fresh basil. So now I'm just going to serve it up over some beautiful thick pasta, and that's it, you guys. Put a little bit of Italian basil on the top, or parsley. Put a little bit of more Parmigiano Reggiano on the top, and just serve it up. This is absolutely a winner. I promise you guys, you're going to love it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, y'all stay cute and take care. Bye.
Simply Food by TY.